In the UK economic budget on March the 3rd, the Chancellor Rishi Sunak revealed plans to reintroduce the 95% mortgages to help people who are struggling to raise a deposit for their first home and turn generation rent into generation buy. In this video, we'll take a look at the positives and negatives of introducing the 95% mortgage scheme and take a look at if they are something that you should use. But first, we'll hear what Rishi Sunak had to say about the scheme and what Kier Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, had to say in response. So here's Rishi Sunak from the 3rd of March during his UK economic budget announcement.
Even with the stamp duty cut, there is still a significant barrier to people getting on the housing ladder: the cost of a deposit. So I'm announcing today a new policy to stand behind home buyers, a mortgage guarantee. Lenders who provide mortgages to home buyers who can only afford a 5% deposit will benefit from a government guarantee on those mortgages. And I'm pleased to say that several of the country's largest lenders, including Lloyds, NatWest, Santander, Barclays and HSBC, will be offering these 95% mortgages from next month. And I know more, including Virgin Money, will follow shortly after. A policy that gives people who can't afford a big deposit the chance to buy their own home. As the Prime Minister has said, we want to turn generation rent into generation buy.
So Rishi Sunak has confirmed that the government will back mortgages up to 95%. The aim is to encourage banks and building societies to start offering 95% mortgages again. The scheme will do this by giving them the chance to buy a guarantee on the portion of the mortgage between 80 and 95%. This basically means that if the borrower gets into financial difficulty and their property is repossessed, the government will cover that chunk of the lender's losses. Here's what Kier Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, had to say in response to this news.
If the government was serious about fixing the broken housing market, it would have announced plans for a new generation of genuinely affordable council houses. Instead, 230,000 council homes have been lost since 2010. Yet the Chancellor focused today on returning to subsidising 95% of mortgages. Now, I know what you're thinking. I've heard that somewhere before. Maybe it was because the Prime Minister announced it 5 months ago in his conference speech. No, I don't think anybody heard that. I remember now, it's what Osborne and Cameron came up with in 2013. And what did that do? It fueled a housing bubble, it pushed up prices, and made owning a home more difficult. So much for generation buy. I've been saying for weeks that this budget will go back. I didn't expect the Chancellor to lift a failed policy from 8 years ago.
So he clearly thinks this is a bad idea and is a reason that a similar scheme in the past has failed. Now we've seen both sides of the argument, let's take a look at the positives and negatives of this 95% mortgage scheme and look at how it could affect you going forward. The first positive is quite obvious. It allows people who are unable to save that 10% plus deposit for a property to get the chance to get on the property ladder and get their first home with only a 5% deposit. The second positive is that it gives people that do have a deposit saved up for a property the chance of getting a bigger property or one that better suits their needs, maybe one in a nicer area, by getting a bigger mortgage and therefore a more expensive house. Another benefit is that the mortgages are backed by the government. This means that a lot of banks and building societies will feel more comfortable offering these mortgages. And the benefit is the more people that offer them and the more that are available, the more competitive the rates are. So you could get a lower rate than you would have if only a few lenders were offering them. So on the surface, this scheme does look good. But what are the negatives with this and why didn't it work so well in the past? The first negative is simply the bigger the mortgage percentage that you have, the higher interest rate you're likely to pay. Your monthly payments could be higher and it could take you longer to pay off the mortgage. Buying a property with a 5% deposit now could mean that you end up spending considerably more in the long term than if you would have saved for a 10% plus deposit. The second negative is that it may still not be affordable for people on lower incomes. When you apply for a mortgage, they look at your affordability. This is where they compare your income to the amount of mortgage that you're applying for. The loan to income ratio in the UK is currently capped at 4.5%. That means for someone who has an income of £20,000 per year, the maximum they could lend in terms of a mortgage is £90,000. But this amount isn't even guaranteed. Some banks and lenders' limits are capped at even lower than that, and they also rely on your ability to prove that you're able to make these monthly repayments. So if you have other debts or other monthly expenses, This may lower the amount that the banks will lend to you, therefore reducing the amount of properties that you could even make an offer for. One of the biggest negatives with this scheme is the possible increase in house prices. If more borrowers have greater purchasing power due to the government's guarantee, and you could buy with just a 5% deposit, this could heat up the market and force prices up. This could mean many prospective buyers remain shut out of the property market, leaving it for wealthy people and investors to come in and buy these properties and turn them into rental properties rather than living in them. This completely goes against the government's plan of turning generation rent into generation buy. So if you're currently renting or don't own your own property and it's something that you're looking to do in the near future, what should you do when it comes to 95% mortgages? Ultimately, it comes down to you and what you think is best for your current situation. If you have time and can save for a larger deposit to buy a property, you'll have a much wider range of mortgages and lower interest rates available to you when you come to buy. But on the flip side, say you're currently renting and trying to save up for a deposit for a property, you may feel like you're wasting money and you'll never be able to save up a 10% plus deposit to buy. In this case, you may just want to get on the property ladder as soon as possible. Also, if house prices were to rise, you may find it takes even longer to save up enough of a deposit to buy a property. So in this scenario, a 95% mortgage may be beneficial to you. It's so important that you take the time and consider all your options before deciding whether to put down a 5% deposit now and take a 95% mortgage, or just wait a little bit longer and continue to save so you can get a better mortgage and a better interest rate later on. Let me know your thoughts on the 95% mortgage scheme. Is this something that you're going to look at taking advantage of? And if you found this video useful, please give it a like because it really helps out the channel. To see what's happening with the furlough scheme and universal credit, check out these videos here and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future videos that are coming up. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.